Hello, everybody. Okay, so let us dive into your first day with Apollo. Okay, there are a couple settings here that are going to be ultra important for you to be successful using this tool and for you to a year down the line or 6 months down the line be able to stay on top of everything that you've done at this point, right? I think the whole idea around these sales engagement tools is less so the ability to do a lot of stuff very quickly and at scale. It's more so around the intelligent outreach that you can do a couple months down the line once you have feedback from the market and feedback from your total addressable market. Okay. So let's just take a step back from that, right? And set us up to do that when the time comes. So let's pretend that we're just logging into Apollo for the first time. First thing I'm going to do over here is I'm going to come and I'm going to set up my contact and my account configuration. Okay. So this is a very key aspect here. Now, I set this up as a skeleton kind of build, just so that everybody that is using either a HubSpot or a Salesforce can follow along. But the first piece for us to do here is to come over and integrate Apollo with either Salesforce or HubSpot on the CRM side, along with whatever conferencing apps you might use, right? So Zoom, Slack, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Okay. So that's the first key here. Now, you'll see that once you integrate something like Salesforce, right, you'll have a bunch of different options here in terms of settings. Now, there's a couple different philosophies here. The first is I want all of my information that's in Salesforce brought over to Apollo, and I want everything that I do in Apollo to go over to Salesforce as well. That's my preferred method. I think that with correct filtering and reporting, you can get down to seeing just the information that you want, but with the context of everything else that's going around. So what I would prefer or recommend is on the contact level, contact/leads, I would show all of the contacts and I would also match, right? Every single time. Same thing on the account side, same thing on the task side, same thing on the opportunity side. Now, when you first log in, you're going to have to push this pull all Salesforce leads and contacts to Apollo. Now, the sales ops and rev ops people in this group are freaking out right now because they're saying, hey, you're going to ruin all my API calls. I'm not going to have enough space. I'm not going to have enough room, and we're going to hit our limit. Apollo is very good with this. They only do a pull every 15 minutes. They also understand where you're at in terms of your Salesforce API hits. So they are not going to overwhelm your system. Now, if you're doing this similar process with another tool simultaneously with Apollo, you might get close to your limit. But if you're running this kind of as a standalone task and your normal flow of business operations are going on, you're going to be okay in terms of those API hits. That was a very big factor for me and a winning proposition on the Apollo side. So cheers to them for that. So now let's just take a step back, right? What do we have so far? We have all of our records that are being pulled into Apollo from Salesforce, which is, again, what I prefer. Now, can you do this on a different aspect where only like the cold leads are being pulled into Apollo? Of course you can. We're going to get into that in a minute. I'm just giving you guys my preferred kind of method here, but we'll get to the rest. So push records. This is, I think, the most important piece of the Apollo Salesforce integration, and it's the same for HubSpot. So the push is, what do we send back from Apollo over to Salesforce? Okay. Now, what I prefer, like I mentioned, is pulling and pushing everything, right? I think that if you report properly, you'll be able to distinguish between what you're looking for while having the whole entire org view at your fingertips, right? Now, a way that you can sidestep this is through the staging push, right? So we're going to get into what these stages are in a little bit, but you can push based on specific stages, meaning that if you have strictly cold outreach and then receive a reply, right, you can just push the replied contacts over to Salesforce while keeping all of your other activity living in HubSpot. In Apollo. A lot of companies prefer to do that, as their sales ops/rev ops leader likes to keep Salesforce clean as kind of like the holy grail of information. Again, it's a preference thing. It's not, one or the other, or this is definitely better than that. But if you were to push based on their stage, this is how you would do it. You would toggle this on, and you would probably only say things like replied, interested, um, maybe do not contact, right? Those are the things that you would push over. Everything else, like cold, which means that you just uploaded them, approaching, which means that you uploaded them, they're in a sequence but didn't get back to you yet. I think that most RevOps leaders would prefer that, just to keep Salesforce super clean. I'm not a RevOps leader. That's not what I prefer, but it's to each their own, right? So I would recommend very similar ideas on the account side, the opportunity side, and the task side, right? So on the account side, you can obviously push based on the stage. Cold, meaning we don't have a meeting. Current client, they're giving us money as of right now. Active opportunity, we have a chance to close a deal with them and we're in contact with them. Dead opportunity, we had that, but now it's dead. And then do not prospect means that they don't want to hear from us ever again, right? So these are the different stages and how you push and pull them. Now, if you were to alter or edit these stages, right, you would just come over to settings. You would then go over to contacts. I would then look right here. Now, as I mentioned, I don't use Salesforce with this customer's instance a ton, right? But if I was going to, I would, set up things like qualified or replied within these statuses, right? And then I would be able to push over and make automation rules based on that. Okay. So basically, if you're using Salesforce or HubSpot and are using all of these different stages on either the contact or the account level, which comes in the same way, right? I would recommend mapping these, right? So mapping them to the proper stage that they are in HubSpot or in Salesforce. And then B, we could talk about like the plays that you would make off of those. As of right now with this setup, I don't have that obviously. But this is a quick look at, hey, you just logged in for the first time. Let's make sure that our integration is set up, and then let's make sure that our stages are all set up. Okay. Um, let's pause there, and we're going to talk next about your email signature along with a couple other admin settings.